Hey everyone, and welcome to Conscious Business Connections, brought to you by the New York City chapter of Conscious Capitalism. My name is Joe Laranjeiro, and I'm joined today by Mike Andrews of Hawkstone Capital, based right here in the New York metro area. Mike, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Joe. Thank you for having me.
So Mike, as a member of Conscious Capitalism and someone who comes to our meetings quite often, I know you're familiar with what Conscious Capitalism stands for, but I just want to remind our viewers that really it's based on a simple idea. That when practiced consciously, businesses really can elevate humanity. At the core of this philosophy are four tenets. One's around higher purpose. Another one is called stakeholder ecosystem. There's one around conscious leadership and also conscious culture. Through a commitment to these four pillars, we believe we can not just alleviate, but transform so many of the challenges that we face today as professionals and as human beings. In this video series, we're talking to organizations like Mike's that have used these principles so that others can learn from his experience. So with that said, Mike, please tell us a little bit about Hawkstone Capital.
Great, thank you. So Hawkstone Capital is a private investment firm that is an operating executive-centric platform that performs majority stake acquisitions of privately held companies in transition.
Great. I know that when we spoke initially, Mike, you had talked about some of the stats with privately held companies, and I was fairly surprised by them not being that familiar with the industry. So you were saying there's 12 million privately held companies, 70% of which changed hands in 15 years. So there's a lot of activity. And that surveys are also strongly suggesting that owners are concerned about the intention of the acquirer. So it's not just about who can pay the most money, but also about what does it mean for my employees, for my clients, for the communities I operate in. What is it about the traditional way of doing M&A that has led to a lot of these concerns?
Well, I'll start with our specific mission as a firm, right? So our mission, which is aligned with the four tenets of conscious capitalism, is to provide a solution to those three macro level trends. And as you said, the first one of those is that there are over 12 million privately held companies in the United States that they estimate 70% of which will change hands in the next 10 to 15 years. And if you look at the survey data, over half of them would say they'd prefer to sell to another operating executive. The second major macro level trend is this explosion of family offices that are looking to make direct investments into individual companies. And many of those also hold those four tenets of conscious capitalism, a thought about a whole stakeholder approach to M&A and not driven off of a specific timeline for a hold period, but what's best for the business, what's best for the employees, what's best for the community and the clients. And so it allows for the flexibility around how that business builds that's not focused on a specific timeline. And the third is that there's this entire population of people out there, very similar to myself, that spent 2/3 of their career in large corporate America, got out of that role for whatever reason, that would love to find a small private company to bring that Fortune 500 experience to execute a growth strategy. And so what we've done is around that mission and around the four tenets of conscious capitalism is brought those three pieces together to provide a solution that fits that trend.
When you talk about the four tenets of conscious capitalism, it always gets back to values. And these values are operational guidelines that we operate by. What are just some of the specific principles that you bring to reforming this industry that your clients seem to resonate with?
Well, I think the largest one is culture, right? So, of the four tenets, culture is our primary differentiator. So purpose, a whole stakeholder view, leadership, we're all values that we embrace, right? But I've learned over my career that culture is what separates good companies from great companies. And when everybody is aligned along a common culture and a goal with a view to all stakeholders, those become great companies and really accelerate the growth. And I think the statistics support that notion.
Yeah, very much so. So you mentioned you bring together these Fortune 500 advisors to work with clients, and I think for them it's about social impact and giving back as well. But you also created a bit of a community here with them, and almost an executive recruitment, job placement type angle for conscious capitalists. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So, as you might imagine, I spend probably half of my time talking with operating executives in transition. And as a component of that, one of the things that we do is really we've created a CRM system within Hawkstone Capital that we allow those operating executives to access to help them in the job search process. We've also developed relationships with about 10 different executive search firms that will reach out to us for specific candidates that they need for a role, or when we come across a role that an executive search firm or any of us is looking to fill, we will reach back into our CRM system, which we have developed very specific segmentation in, custom segmentation that allows us to find people with specific backgrounds in specific regions to help fill those roles, and then we'll make a referral.
And how many people do you have currently in that CRM system? Can you share?
Sure, of course. So so of that custom segmentation, there are 3 different segments to that. One is operating executives, which is the largest segment. The next one is kind of, which a lot of it comes from operating executives, but also from other segments, is kind of deal flow sources. People that know our platform, understand what we stand for, and the types of companies we're looking for. And the third is obviously investors. As I said, primarily family office investors and high net worth individuals. All of those, I've spoken to every single one of those people at some time. And we know, based on those discussions, espouse the same kind of beliefs that we do. So it's created a platform and a database of kind of like-minded people, of which we have about 10,000 contacts in total. About 7,000 of those are operating executives.
Yeah, and people that you've touched personally, which means that you can, I don't want to say vouch, but you know where they stand and what their beliefs are, what their principles are, which makes what you have, I think, very powerful, because everyone is of like-mindedness, and that's really impressive. Thanks, Mike. You mentioned family offices and social impacting and where people are looking to put their money. I mean, I'm noticing that this is increasing across, every study that I see, right? People being more discriminate about what they put their money. It's not about just making a buck. They want to consider wider impacts of their investments in the community as well as society at large. Can you tell us a little more about what you're noticing in this environment, and how does this tie to kind of the social impacting investing that you're getting from a lot of the people in your contact list?
Absolutely. So first of all, I've seen a significant uptick in outreach. So in preparing for this call, I actually went back and took a look through my calendar, and since kind of March 16th, I've done over 200 phone calls or video conference calls with operating executives, family offices, and privately held businesses that are in transition. And I think there's been a trend along these lines for a long period of time, right? People thinking more about that all-encompassing stakeholder view of company, employees, clients, community, and profit. But I see an uptick in that in this environment. And part of it, I think, is due to there are a lot more people in transition right now. And so there are a lot of operating executives that are trying to figure out what they're going to do in this environment, because they're either been let go or decided to change based on what they've seen. And I can say the same thing about privately held companies. And I think anytime you're in an environment like this, where we're all sharing the exact same experiences, we've all been quarantined, you start thinking about what's important: family, community, friends, family. And so I think that's helped accelerate some of that impact investing.
Yeah, I'm noticing that as well, with people in my sphere of influence, where they're really starting to just reflect and take a step back as to what really matters in life. And how can they support their families and support their retirement and so forth, but also be productive and contributing members to making the world a better place for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's allowed people to slow down, right?
Yeah.
And you're not, traveling as much. They're not commuting an hour and a half into the city in and out every day. And so they're spending more time with the family at home, on calls. And I know we do this almost every night. We have a video conference with either friends or family. And I can say during this environment, even though we're all quarantined, I'm more well connected with my friends and family than I was before this occurred.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Yeah.
It's growth through crisis or growth through being uncomfortable. That's from a philosophical point of view. That's where the biggest expansion occurs, right? Is through the dark times.
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, your principled approach to an industry and service that, let's face it, isn't known for its conscious business approach, I think gives me and everyone a lot of optimism and really helps us believe that reform is truly possible and continues to occur. So thank you for the work you do, and thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Joe, I would say that, I hope that certain aspects of this continue on even after the quarantine is lifted. As we've talked about before, one of the silver linings I've found in this is that my calls have all become more personal and personable. And what I mean by that is first of all, we're all sharing the exact same experience. So the first thing you do when you get on a call with people is, how are you doing? Is everybody safe and healthy? And the calls become more personal very quickly. And I also believe they become more personable because whereas in the past, you'd have meetings in conference room with sterile white walls and a big table, bunch of black chairs around it with a whiteboard at the far end. Now we're doing this, right? Where we are on video conferences, you get a view into people's life a little bit. They tend to be a little more relaxed. I've been observing that, 90% of the guys I see haven't shaved in days, right? And 90% of the women have their hair pulled back in a ponytail and a hat on.
Yeah.
And I think that the walls are broken down and you get more into what drives people than you can do in a suit in a stuffy conference room. So it's one of the silver linings I hope continues.
That's well said. A lot of great heartwarming stories out there of, kids running into their parents' laps during Zoom calls, right? And pets and cats, knocking over the camera, and people giving tours of their homes, right? It's a sense of humanity. I think it humanizes someone more than we've ever had before, which also makes us rethink about how we treat each other as well. Because they have families, right? They have, homes. They have needs, and it puts that stamp on it for us. And I think it's really well said. Thank you for sharing that. Before we let you go, Mike, you want to just quickly tell us how people can learn more about your company?
Absolutely, please. You can visit our website at www.hawkstonecapital.com. We're, as I said, we're really highly focused on helping operating executives in transition and providing advisory support as well as acquisition of privately held companies in transition who are very discerning sellers and are looking for, an operating executive to sell their business to.
I think in this environment of small business owners trying to figure out what they're going to do, the next step, the next journey in the process, if they don't make it, I think a service like yours is one that we should all be aware of, because there is a right way to do it. So thank you, Mike, and hope for continued success on your end. So just want to quickly thank our Conscious Capitalism New York City sponsors, the Core Club, as well as the Tomiak Foundation, who support and makes a program like this possible. So thank you for joining us. Hope to see you in another episode of Conscious Business Connections. Please be well.